Welcome to Tin Talks, real conversations with champions for champions. I'm your host, Emily Love.
And I'm Carlette Patterson, your head sports life coach. And the desired outcome of our Real Conversations for Champions with Champions is to share our passion for sports life coaching. We want to get you coached, and our purpose for training you for a life that you love is we want to connect you to what matters to you in your life and the power of being a champion in your own life. A champion life is a 10 life.
Hi, team. In the gym world, there's a stigma around guys who only lift weights to increase their upper body strength. Biceps get more attention than calves. That's just the truth. The saying, "Suns out, guns out," fits perfectly in this scenario. But there's also another saying, "Friends don't let friends skip leg day." It's a silly comparison, but if you've been in the gym at all, I think you can resonate with this idea. And what stands out the most to me is not a bulging bicep, but rather an imbalance from one part of the body to another. If we are not careful, we can become like this in our personal lives, paying more attention to the things we naturally like and are good at, and failing to work out areas of our life that need the same attention. This week on 10 Talks, our desired outcome is to talk about well-being in 3 dimensions. Here to join us for our conversation is Dr. Teri Pipe, Chief Wellbeing Officer for Arizona State University, where she is tasked with creating an environment that supports mental and physical health for students, faculty, and staff. Dr. Teri, welcome to the show. Carlette, we are ready to get coached.
Team, welcome to our Life Gym. It's another fabulous day that we are ready to really dive into a gigantic topic of well-being. This is just so fascinating that it's a word that has been around forever, but all of a sudden we see it everywhere. We actually want it, but we're not quite sure exactly what it means or what the definition is. And the word well-being really aligns with our 3 dimensions. And what's fascinating about what we're going to talk about today is really claiming that definition. Because so many times in life, we use words that all of us say the same words over and over, but we mean something so different with them. So for us today, team, we're going to really ignite the power of team. We've got Dr. Teri Pipe with us to really share her great wealth of information about this topic that's somewhat old school and new. So that's the fun of life, is really combining what we've learned in the past and how we want to take it into our future. And let me just get you set up, first of all, team, with our 3 dimensions. So I want you thinking about yourself as a 3-dimensional person. And the 3 dimensions that we are here to coach you on is your personal life. We want to equal significance. And when we say that word, it means what matters to you. This is your personal life. It's your person. You take you with you everywhere you go. So what matters to you? What's important to you? That's how we want you to define significance. And in your professional life, we want you to define success, not how the world does it or social media, but totally how do you define success? And then in your philanthropic life, which is a dimension that we are passionate about, that's really the core of who we are and holds us together, is how we want to give hope to the world and how we want to give hope to ourselves and our family and our friends. So Dr. Pipe, welcome. Very honored to have you on the team today and excited to share with the world. I know you're passionate about well-being, and you're also really committed to being a 3-dimensional person. And that's what's great about the power of tools, is how do we train to achieve well-being as our desired outcome in our 3 dimensions?
So thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to talk with you and your audience about this. So to me, well-being is very multidimensional and it's very personal. As you said, we bring ourselves with us everywhere we go. And likewise, we bring our well-being everywhere we go. So I want to begin by just kind of contrasting the word well-being from wellness. A lot of programs and titles use the word wellness, and we were very intentional to not do that, to use the word well-being just because it's subtly different. It really makes us think about the whole person and acknowledging that well-being is something that everybody has regardless of their health status, their ableness, their gender, their background. Everybody has a sense of well-being, whereas wellness can get into just your body. You can think about it only in terms of your mind and body. So when I think about well-being, I really think about every aspect of you. So it really works with your three-dimensional model. We think about well-being, with the students, faculty, and staff, and I'll just touch on some of our points that we discuss. It is physical, but it's also nutritional and mental, cognitive, sexual, spiritual, financial, social, cultural. So when you think about how multifaceted well-being is, there's also an added complexity, or actually a really big privilege, is that it continues to grow and change. And so your well-being might be something, you might score it on a 0 to 10 scale today of an 8, but next week it might be a 2. So in 5 years from now, it might be a 10. You just don't know how that might be. So understanding that it's very dynamic and changeable, and that you can have goals around your well-being that really you can accomplish.
So let's talk about, if I want to set myself up for success in my professional life, I know I'm going to be mixing it up with a world that isn't always focused on my well being. They're not necessarily for me. There's deadlines and games to win, and there's so much stress and pressure. So, if I am committed to being a 10 and that is my goal, what would you say are some winning strategies for me to be able to begin to practice so that I feel like I have some control or some way of really practicing being a 10 from a well-being perspective?
So I think the first step is assessing, so just looking at yourself very honestly and thinking about your own well-being. And so maybe sitting down with a piece of paper or computer and jotting down, writing, what are the components of your well-being today? Put the date on it. What are the components of your well-being today that are important to you? And then really going through that list and prioritizing, okay, what are the one or two components that you really want to focus on? And with the understanding that well-being is interesting, because when you move one of those things, likely you're going to move most of them. They'll all kind of come along. So that's where I would suggest starting, is just a really honest self-assessment that you put on paper, or however you choose to document it, so that you have a starting place.
So I love the winning strategy of, if I want to be a 10 from a well-being perspective, to set my desired outcome. It's daily, which I love. That means that every day is a new day, right? So I can win the day. Every day is game day, and I can get up and say, okay, personally today I'm going to do these particular things. I'm going to work out, I'm going to eat healthy, whatever I've got, whatever's for significance to me. And then I'm going to move into my next dimension, which is professional. And I'm going to say my desired outcomes today, professionally, for my well being are whatever's important to me and however I define success. And then I'm going to get to practice giving hope as well as a desired outcome for my well being. And that can show up in any way, in terms of, paying it forward for the person behind me in line, or giving a smile away. So I love just the fundamentals of well being and us starting to explore what that looks like. I love the fact that it's personal. That's exactly what all of our coaching is all about, is that find a coach that's a 10 for you, but then train for your life that is a 10, and anchoring that in well-being as the desired outcome. Let's just talk about what shows up from a well-being perspective, and how do we take this word that we're hearing and make it personal for us.
So well-being is very personal, and it's very contagious. So, when you make the commitment to take charge of your own well-being, you are actually also going to influence your professional group, the people that you work with, whether that's person to person or online, virtually. You can't help but influence them when you come from a place of strength and centeredness and well-being for yourself. So I think that is definitely a winning strategy, just knowing that however you show up, and that works the opposite too. When you're not in your best self, that will also be contagious, and you won't see the performance of your team go as high or as strong. So I think that well-being is a tool that you can use. It takes a lot of commitment, and as you mentioned in the very beginning, um, no one else is going to look out for your well-being. You have got to have agency and ownership of it for yourself. And some of the things that I think threaten well-being from a life standpoint, we tend to push ourselves, and especially high performers, trying to get more done, and often that means sleeping less, eating less healthily, if that's a word, um, and trying to move through life so quickly that we may not actually be very effective. So when we hurry, we really rob ourselves of often of having very effective outcomes. So I think it can show up in a variety of ways, but there are certain areas that threaten our well-being, so being vigilant to watch for those things, and just sort of probably the things that I see often in leaders and the people that I am with is that sleep, nutrition, physical activity, and then just a harshness with themselves about their own performance that actually gets in the way of them performing better.
Dr. Pipe, as I've talked to my friends and even my husband, the people in my community, when I've talked about sports life coaching or really taking the time to kind of dig into who you are, well being, there's an overall response of sort of cringing or they say, hey, I think I do need to focus on me, but they're hesitant to say it because it sounds selfish. So can you speak on, you spoke on it a touch before, about it, how it's not selfish and how we can sort of engage in well-being and not feel like we are taking too much for ourselves, or this becomes sort of an I'm only looking at me and what matters. Can you speak on that for me?
I would love to. Thank you so much, because I think that is a very prevalent misconception is that self-care is selfish, and it is anything but that. So when we do decide to take care of ourselves, we're really strengthening the best tool that we have to affect change in the world. And so by taking the time and the effort, the energy that it takes every day to take care of ourselves, we're actually becoming better at who we are and strengthening the gifts that we've been given, to give back to the world. So I think one of the ways that I use is that when I do something for my own well-being, whether that's connecting with people that I love, or if it's having physical activity or having fun, using humor, sleeping well, I actually give myself the self message that I am doing this in the service of others. So I'm taking care of myself right now so that I can serve others better. And so just as self-talk can be negative, we can flip that and use those words to actually strengthen those behaviors and those thoughts that will be more beneficial to us. So I think just understanding that when you keep yourself in the best sense of self that you can be, you give your gift more accurately and clearly and generously to the world, whatever your roles are.
Dr. Terry, can you also talk about how this would look in a professional dimension for success? You've talked about how we can make a list at the beginning of our day, and certainly that can have all three aspects of it, but that feels more personal because we're the ones kind of taking control of our life and our service and our profession. What could this look like for a CEO to ground their employees, or just a leader who's managing a group of people to lead their team in well-being in their professional lives?
I think one thing is to be more um, strong and bold about talking about well-being as a performance indicator and as a strength. And so for a CEO, actually saying, I do these behaviors for my own well-being so this organization can succeed. So having the CEO role model those behaviors, but not silently. Silently role modeling is a good strategy, but I think that intentionally speaking about it and highlighting it is very bold and effective. So that's one way. And then a second way is to figure out ways that you can really promote well-being, promote the awareness of well-being for your staff and those that you lead in a way that acknowledges that it does look different for everyone. So, oftentimes we see these challenges in the workplace that are one dimensional. They might be only physical activity, or they might be only nutrition. And that might not be a certain person's, strength area or something that really speaks to them. So I think coming up with organizational infrastructure that really honors the individual pursuit of well-being for themselves, that's challenging, but very doable.
So, Dr. Pipe, you really struck on something that is an intention that we would all love to have. Implementing it is another thing, in terms of our organizations are somewhat machines and we don't control all of them. Even as a CEO, we can sometimes have a board of directors or somebody that's doing something different from that perspective. And what I really hear as something that I want to anchor into is valuing it, and hearing that I'm going to value myself personally. When I wake up in the morning, I'm going to, first of all, it's going to start with the night before, because I'm going to take good care of myself to get a good night's rest. Wake up and do whatever rituals and routines really set me up to be my best self. And then I'm going to show up at work, and I'm going to have to value myself enough to bring myself to the workplace at 10. And then I'd love it when my boss, my CEO, whoever it is that I'm supporting, is that they're saying, Carlette, we value this in our organization. And I love the bold aspect of saying this matters. And so that's really important from that perspective. So do you have some film or some experiences of organizations that, change is difficult? We know that. Do you have some great models or things that you can share with us of people, organizations that have said well-being matters? We're committed to it. We're going to be bold, and we're going to go for this.
So I'll just speak about my own organization, Arizona State University, where they created this position of Chief Wellbeing Officer as a statement to say this is important to the value of this university. We do value it, and this is why, and this is how. This is sanctioned, and we believe in it. So I think sometimes it's creating words or creating positions, creating movements around this so that it is visible. And then there's also connecting to the mission of the organization. So in a mission of a university, we look for academic success. We look for, how do students retain, or how long do they stay at the university? Do they graduate? So linking well-being with the outcomes of the organization. I've worked in healthcare organizations before. So in those situations, linking the well-being of the organizational workers and employees with the outcomes of the patients, and acknowledging that the health of the healthcare team is actually very important to the health of the patients. So whatever venue, and I see that those aren't the only two types of organizations that this group would be engaged with, but thinking long and hard about what are the outcomes of your organization, what's your mission of the organization, and then linking well-being with those outcomes. And my guess is that those could be very logically linked, very naturally linked, because when we support the well-being of the parts of the organization, it really helps the organization move in great directions. And when we think about systems, when you change any part of the system, you change the system. And sort of the pushback that is often given about well-being is it's not part of our culture. Well, we're all part of the culture.
Yeah.
We change the culture. We drive the culture, no matter where you sit in the organization. So taking some ownership and getting some energy around that, I think, is really worthwhile.
Well, I just really respect the power of team showing up here. And we really we practice this in sports all the time. We know, if I want to be a champion on a team, that I have to be a champion myself. And meaning I got to take care of myself. I've got to make the right choices so that I can show up at practice. And I've got to make the right choices to manage mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all of those components that we're terming are the winning formula for really well-being. And so it's no matter what field we're in, or whether it's a three-dimensional component, whether it's in my personal life, professional, or philanthropic, I'm really hearing that it starts with me, and it starts with me determining how I define well-being, and then one small step at a time, practice, 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 and then going into my organization and living it to give it, really showing and being an example that they're like, hey, I want whatever Carlette's got. Like that's something that we want in our organization. So rather than it being kind of that put me in coach, I want this and demanding it, I hear something so different, and I think that is really what well-being is it's not about me demanding something, it's about me demanding something of myself so that I can show up and be different, and then that result of me being this different human that really is something unique to look at from a mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. You can feel my energy as being something that we actually attracts good and attracts what we want versus the performance barriers or things that we don't want. So I'm going to really challenge us, team, for us individually as well as our organizations, wherever we're showing up in life, we can actually set the intention of, I want my well-being to be a 10, and I'm committed to every day making the choices that really make that happen. And we're committed to this as an organization. We are totally committed to every person's well-being. That's what getting coached is all about, is that we are for you, and we are also for your organization and for your family and for your friends, and for the places you volunteer. And so, team, I'm going to really challenge us because we have an opportunity to be different, and if we want different, we've got to show up and be different. And everything that we're committed to is about training people for that. We're not about inspiring you and giving you all this new hope and then not equipping you with the tools that you need to be able to do it. So being really practical on how do we want to do this. And I just want all of us to hear that we're for this and we're for each other. And part of that is saying, we're going to do it. Be bold, be courageous, connect to the people that feel the same passion for you, go for what matters, attract that, go for it, whatever it is you want, we want to give you the courage to be able to go for it.
So when we think about making decisions moment by moment, that's really where the power of well-being comes in, because you are confronted with things that might derail your well-being every day. We face cupcakes, we face there lots of stresses for our time and lots of competition for our attention. All of that's just part of the glory of being alive. So it's really important to notice that every decision that we make about how to manage those challenges becomes part of the momentum. So moment by moment, it's actually in the word momentum. So as you make a decision in this moment, it really creates your momentum for how you'll make the decision in the next moment and the next and the next. So it's really an opportunity, regardless of what dimension of well-being that you're really looking to change or to impact, that when you make those decisions, it really sets you up for success. If you move in the right direction this time, you're going to be much more likely to move in the right direction the next time. And then if you can give yourself credit for that. So when you make that good choice, don't just move on. Take just even a nanosecond and tell yourself, good job. Good job, Carlette. You did this. And it's going to really set you up to succeed the next time. And then empowering your team to do the same thing, letting them watch you create that momentum and celebrate successes. And then I guess the other thing is that often we get hooked into thinking that everything has to have an active component, and a lot of well-being is actually a being component. So, it's great to have your to-do list and your action plans and your goals. Fabulous. It's also really important to have a to-be list. And so how do you want to be today? How do you want to show up? Is it happy? Is it peaceful? Is it engaged? Maybe just one word each day but really acknowledging that well-being also has that being component to it that might be really separate from or distinct from the actual tasks that we do to create a sense of well-being.
I'm very excited that we are committed to this and to teaming up so that we can bring this to the world. And I know we've got a workshop coming up. It's called The Power of Purpose and Silence, and really anchoring purpose, silence, and well-being as a way to come together and practice. So we're excited about that. You can find out more information for us on our website for that. And also just really, I love that challenge of a being list. Who am I today? What's on my well-being list instead of what's on my to-do list? And so the great news about our conversation today is it's a beginning. It's one step. It's that moment by moment momentum. And I know that our organization is committed to it. Your organization is committed to it. Personally, we're committed to it. Philanthropically, of course, we want to give the world hope, and we're committed to that. And so, team, just know if you want this and if you're committed to it, we're there for you. And there are people and organizations that feel as passionate about this as we do. And we just want you to, first of all, have the courage to say, I want it, the compassion to celebrate it. I absolutely love that's one of our tools to celebrate. And Dr. Pipe, you said it beautifully. It's just that internal celebration. It isn't the external, because I'm learning to manage me before I'm working to get recognition in the world. So that's a really important component.
Dr. Pipe, one last question before we wrap up. You talked about momentum is the moment to moment choices, but I can identify that, seeing a cupcake is going to be harder it's going to be harder not to eat that cupcake if I haven't sort of made a long-term goal for health. Can you give me an idea of what that looks like in terms of living moment by moment, but in my well-being? Is it important to sort of make some goals that I can have overarching over in my life, so that it's not that I'm just saying no to myself to not eat the cupcake, but I've made goals to, eat more vegetables than I do dessert for the week, or what have you? How do you set that up for success in your life so that you can gain the momentum focused on the future of what you have in mind, of what you want to go for?
Sure. That's such a great question, Emily. So I think, first of all, cupcakes aren't evil. And if you're going to eat the cupcake, eat it with great gusto and enjoyment, but do it slowly and get pleasure out of it. So I didn't mean to demonize cupcakes, but just as a kind of a symbol of sort of the temptations or the threats that we have to our well-being. And you're absolutely right. There is the moment to moment awareness and momentum that is really important. And when we spend the time to be grounded and centered in who we are and how we are, that really also requires that we have a vision for who we're becoming. So it's not an either or. You can have both. You can be really focused on being here and now and creating a momentum in this moment. And also having that sort of, it's like a compass. You have the direction set. You know that you're moving in that right direction. And it might be a well-being goal for your physical body, that you want to be strong. And so every rep counts, and the last one is the most important one in this moment. But your compass is leading you in that direction of overall strength. So I think it's certainly looking at things from both. What's happening in this moment, and then also being grounded in your desired future, your desired outcome that is more preferable than what is in the world right now for you. So I always think about it in terms of sort of a spiritual way, is that, I accept myself and feel accepted for who and loved for who I am right now. But never do I stop dreaming, and never do I stop thinking about, who I am becoming. And I feel very supported in that dream by many other people and sources of strength. So it's not that I'm ever finished, but I'm also, that's balanced with being very compassionate and accepting with who I am today. So, as an educator, I come at my students that way. And as a coach, I would guess that Carlette comes at her clients this way, is we love and accept that person in front of us as they are right now, but we never stop envisioning who they're becoming and really growing with them for what their desired outcome is.
Dr. Pipe, I think that is such an encouraging and compelling answer. I think, especially for that individual that's dealing with whether it's a low level or a super crippling depression. Or, again, we talked about we're not going to claim that over us, but we're feeling these feelings of maybe this grayness or, okay, I got to get up and I got to do this all over again. As a high achiever, we want to excel, we want to succeed, but we can feel the pressure of it in the morning, and that can be a crippling feeling. So engaging in both of those worlds where I have the day to day, the moment by moment momentum, but I can also forecast where I'm headed. And that gives me the courage, the compelling desire to step outside of my bed each morning and go, hey, I'm not going to be perfect today, but I get moment to moment opportunities to better myself, to better others. And I also get to dream about what my life is going to look like, not only today, but for the weeks and months and years following. And I think as a high achiever, and just as an individual who wakes up with this desire to live on purpose, I think that's going to compel all of us to live with a sense of wanting to live towards well-being. So, Dr. Pipe, thank you so much. Coach, thank you for this great workout.
So, team, it's up to you now. It's time to go practice, practice, practice. And this week, let's really anchor in purpose, dream, and deciding what is our dream and our purpose for our own well being, and really going for it. So, making sure that it's all about you, self care, self compassion. Remember, it starts with us so that we can serve the world in a level that's so much better and so much higher than anything we've ever dreamed of. So go for it. Nothing but tens. Everything's about well being this week.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget, tune in next week and head over to iTunes and Spotify and hit subscribe.
Remember, a championship life is a 10 life. You matter. Your life matters. Create a life that you love. Give hope to others and be and choose nothing but tens. Be you. The world needs you. Go to lifetrainingacademy.com.